Welcome to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Today, we're interviewing Barak Heymann. This is part 1 of 2 of this podcast. This podcast is kindly sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street. And I'd like to ask you, how did you begin documentary? Can you tell us your story briefly?
Wow. Okay, briefly. It's all because of my brother, I believe. It's his fault. I lived a great life in New York back in 1997 for 2 years. I never wanted to come back to Israel. And then he came and told me, why don't you go and study filmmaking? Maybe you should be an editor. Maybe you should be a cameraman. Maybe you should be a producer, director. We can do stuff together. He was already making films way back then. And I was like, no, I don't care about documentaries. I don't want it. It's not my thing. And I don't want to work together. It's too complicated. And why to risk our friendship and our brotherhood and forget about it. I'm not into it. He said, okay, what can you do? He came back to Israel and kept on making his films, beautiful, beautiful films. And then I came back to Israel because of a love story. And then I found myself going to university to study social work because I wanted to work with people, to treat people, to help people. But I didn't like it so much. It was very boring and it wasn't my thing as well. At the same time, he released his first huge, big film that made a lot of mess here in Israel in a good way, like brought many people to the cinema. It's called It Kind of Scares Me. It was a beautiful documentary. And I started to help him just as a young brother to promote the film and to bring people to the cinema and to distribute it. And then I saw that people are coming again and again to the same film and crying and laughing and writing us letters and like sharing with us how this film have changed their life. And all of a sudden I realized how strong and deep and meaningful can this experience be for people. So I started to be more and more attracted to this world. And then sometime later, I was invited together with my brother to visit a very, very good friend of us. His name is Faisal. He's a Palestinian man living inside of Israel who told us that he is about to create bilingual, binational elementary school for both Jewish and Arab kids inside of Israel, which never happened before in Israel to locate such a school inside an Arab village. And then he asked my brother if he want to document this process because he knew that my brother is already into the filmmaking business. And my brother said, yes, sure. It sounds very interesting. And on the way back to Tel Aviv, he asked me, my brother, would you like to join me? Would you like to join the ride? Like, would you like to make it together with me? Because he knew that I'm very much attracted to the political aspect of this story. And I said, sure, I would love to make a film together about it, but I don't know how to make films. I don't know how to direct. I don't know how to film. I don't know how to produce. I don't know anything, basically. And he said, don't worry, I will teach you. You will learn by yourself. It will be all fine. And this is how it all started. And we made our first film together, which was quite a big success, at least for us, because it was shown in many, more than 100 different film festivals around the world. It won many awards. It was on TV and cinema in some places. It created some effect on people and real change. And then things were leading one to another, and I started to direct more films and to produce more films. And 20 years later, I'm here with you.
And that was
50 years, yeah.
And that was the bridge over the Wadi, right?
Yes.
2006. I see beforehand that there was quite a lot of films before that. There was My Village, Paper Dolls, Aviv, It Kind of Scares Me. What is it that Tomer has that you don't have and that you have that he doesn't have?
Wow, wow, wow. This is a very, very, very strong and interesting and surprising question. What is it that Tomer has and I don't have, or I have and he doesn't? I think he has the courage, or maybe the need, or at least had, maybe not anymore so much, to bring himself to the screen as the main protagonist of different documentary films he have created. It Kind of Scares Me. Also Paper Dolls is inside, not as the main character, but he's inside. I Shot My Love, The Queen Is No Crown, The Way Home. Like many films, he is very much there, and in a way the film is about him. This is something that I never had, I don't have, and I don't think I will ever have, and don't really have the need to have. Even though lately I put myself more and more in the films, like with this film, High Maintenance, you can really feel me and then see me and then hear me more than in any other film before. But still, it's never about me. So this is one thing. And what is it that I have and that he doesn't have?
Yes.
It's a very interesting question. Well, I can produce films for other directors and he cannot. This is for sure. He is producing his own films together with me, or I produce for him, but he never produced for other people. So in a way, I think that I am the only one he is able to create films with. But for me, he is not the only one that I am able to create films with, because I did it also with other people.
So his relationship to you is like a swan, right? You need two swans sort of to live together, to create together. But you're a bit more free and independent, so to speak.
I don't know, we're very different. Our character is very different, our spirit, our energy, but at the same time, we are not so different. Like, I mean, we in a way share same values, artistically and morally and in general. Like, we're not such a different creatures in the deep sense of it. But the way we behave, the way we talk, the way we manage relationships, the way we look at things, and also sometimes the way we make films, of course, it's different. Like when I work with one editor. In a way, it's much more, I don't know how to say, in a way relaxed way of making film. And he can work with 2-3 editors together at the same time. And I think he's more, in a way, restless than me in the editing room. But at the same time, he is able to spend more time in the editing room with me. Like he's more of a freak control in the editing room than me. Now, it's not that I don't care. I care about every little thing in the editing room, and I can remember by heart every cut, every frame, everything. And I will try many things until I'm happy. And I'm very, very much involved emotionally, artistically in the editing process. But in a way, I think maybe I give more place to my partner in the editing room than him. Like, he's getting a lot of help from the great editors he's working with, but I think at the end of the day, he's trusting himself more, or knowing better exactly what is it that he wants to do while I understand those things together with someone else. So he's more of a one player.
We're going to go back to that. That's coming back to vision and of story. In the beginning, were you working together as a team, or did you have a crew with you? Were you filming, for example, and was Tomer out in front, for example, in Aviv? We see he's very much part of the story.
Well, we usually work in a very, very intimate crews. Like also, it kind of scares me. And Aviv, he was filming with one guy, like one cameraman, not even a sound man. Like there is one guy with a camera and there is Tomer, the director, next to him. And also the films I make, for example, both films that are behind me now, High Maintenance and Lone Samaritan, are good examples. Most of the days without sound man, it's me, the director, and Lukash, the cameraman in High Maintenance, or Uri Levy, the cameraman in Lone Samaritan. So it's crew of 2 people. Sometimes it's even a crew of 1 man, which means that I go by myself with the camera, or in both projects behind me, High Maintenance and Lone Samaritan, there is a good reason why the cinematographer, the cameraman, have received also the credit of co-director, because in both projects, they have created beautiful scenes by themselves when I was not even there, because I couldn't come that day. And it was happening many days like this, that they went by themselves to bring good materials, and I thought they deserve to have the co-director credit.
When you're filming, how do you know what to film? Do you zoom in, do you zoom out? Are you medium shot, close up, wide? Or do you follow rules? Do you do rule of thirds? Do you ever think about these things, or is your focus on something else, or it's a mixture of things? Lights.
You have tough questions. First of all, if I go with the cinematographer, I, of course, tell him many things, and I drive him crazy, like about things which I like and things which I don't like, and I'm always a bit nervous that he doesn't miss anything and that he's putting his eyes and his heart in the right place. But at the same time, I also give him credit that he knows what he's doing, and I'm not like on his neck all the time. And then, of course, when I see some of the materials in the editing room, I can tell him, hey, you know, you don't do enough close-ups. I want you, please, to be more focused on it. Or you don't help me to bring enough shots of people who are listening, people who are in silence. So it's hard for me to edit the scene like this, because you're only focusing on the people who are talking, and you don't bring me enough shots of people who are listening. So then he understands me more, but he knows what do I want already. If, to be honest, I'm not that strong, I don't know how to say it, with the aesthetics. Not because they are not important and not because I don't care, but because I don't have a very, very clear vision about the way I want things to look. I can say, when I see the materials in the editing room, I can say very clearly, I don't like it. It doesn't look good. Why is like shaking, or why it doesn't stay in one place for more than 5 seconds, and why the colors are too bright, or why the composition is boring, why is in the back of the frame there is nothing interesting happening. And I can tell him, hey, what do you do? Like, I want it like this, I want it like that. But I don't have like a very, very, very strict, I don't know how to say, rules of filming that I follow. Usually what I just tell the cameraman, make it look beautiful, make it look beautiful. Like, film it nicely, film it nicely. And then he would usually say, oh, really? Of course, I thought you want me to film it ugly.
What about Tomer? Does he have a different opinion on that?
Yes and no. Like, I think sometimes he's more dominant with the guidance he gives to the cameraman, but also many times it's completely the same. They know what he's looking for, and they do it, and our taste is, at the end of the day, is similar because it's based on the emotions and the way we direct our cinematographers is not only about the composition and the framing and the colors, it's about the feelings and the sensations and the emotions. Like I can freak out when a cameraman is holding the camera and so focus in the lens itself, how things look, and he doesn't realize that if he would just look like this, he would find out that over there someone is sitting and crying, and the whole scene is in a different place. And because he's so stressed and so careful and so responsible about the composition and the framing of what he's filming, he's missing out something very emotional, which is happening just around the corner. And that can freak me out. And those are the things I'm telling them most of everything.
Right. Agnes Varda would often say she would leave things to chance on the day sometimes. And that sounds like things happen that you can never predict. So you got to be open, right?
Absolutely. Both me and my brother don't believe in writing scripts for documentary films. We leave a big space for chance. But the fact that we leave big space for chance doesn't mean that we are flies on the wall. We are active, we are dominant, we make things happen. We are many times leading and navigating and even sometimes pushing our characters to the edge or to dare to talk about things and to do things. So it's not like we are just coming and whatever happens, happens. But it's true that we are coming for a shooting day with a very vague idea about what's going to happen. And usually the interesting things are not the things which can be anticipated beforehand.
Can you give us some examples of when you navigated and lead in a scene?
Oh man, it's tough with you. You ask all the good questions. Yes, of course. Let's say, yeah, my latest film, High Maintenance, which just came out. There is a very strong scene when he's sitting with his wife. They are nearly 90 years old. And we are talking about the day after. The day after, one of them will be gone. We're basically talking about the most sensitive topic. We're talking about death. What will happen if one of them is dying? What will the other one do? Now, it's even more emotional nowadays to see this scene in the film because he just passed away 2 weeks ago, a few months after the film came out. And I can tell you that, yes, this conversation was tough, was interesting, was funny at parts when she's telling him, I don't want to die and to leave you alone because 50 young chicks will come here and ask to take my place with you. So they also bring humor to this scene. But this scene is very sensitive, I would say, and delicate and emotional. And this is not something that they were talking about just like this. I was pushing it. I was triggering it. I made them talk about it, and the scene ends up with her saying, let's change the topic. I don't want to talk about. Or for example, there is very strong political demonstration in the heart of Tel Aviv on Eben Gvirol Street against the fascist national law of Israeli government, which basically a law which says to the Arab citizens of Israel, you are second-degree citizen. You are not equal to the Jews, which is horrible, horrible, horrible law. And of course, we are the, I don't know how to say, the leftists, or whatever, against it. And there is a big demonstration in the square, which was designed by him. And he didn't even know about the demonstration. So first of all, I told him about the demonstration. I brought him there. Second, I know the people who were running the demonstration. And then I go to this woman, this Palestinian woman living in Israel from Jaffa, where I live. She's like conducting this whole and moderating this whole big event. And then I tell her, look, the man who designed this square, who is the winner of Israeli prize, this is maybe the most important prize in Israel to receive, is here. And he desired to talk. And he has a lot of things very important to say. And I think it's amazing if you call him to go on stage. And she says, no, 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 the lineup is already fixed and there is no place and forget about it. And I said, please, you know me, I'm not bullshitting you. It will be great. Give me just 2 minutes, just good 2 minutes. I'm asking you, you won't regret it. And she said, okay, okay. And then I bring him and I tell him you have 2 minutes and he's getting upset. Why only 2 minutes? And I tell him, okay, just believe me, it was my mistake. I told them too late. Just go and talk for 2 minutes, something strong. It's your square. People want to hear what you have to say. It will be good, believe me. And then he's coming and he's standing there in front of everybody and bitching about the government and about this law and very strong and basically tells them, go to hell, to all the ministers and the prime minister and everything. And it's a very, very strong moment in the film, which would never happen if I was not creating this moment. He didn't know about this event. He wouldn't be there if I didn't tell him. They wouldn't invite him to come on stage because they didn't even know who is he. Like they know the name, but they didn't know he is even there. So this is to create something. This is to trigger something.
Interesting. And how do you link scenes together? For example, in High Maintenance, you have these scenes that sort of came up nearly on the spot whilst you were filming. How do you link it to the rest of the story?
Now you are asking me the $1 million question, like how do you edit films?
Yes.
Yeah. What kind of answer I can give you? How to edit
talk
films?
about High Maintenance, for example.
Okay, so first of all my respect to Shira Hochman, who received the Best Editing Award for this film in the Jerusalem International Film Festival, and she was a great partner for this. And she would watch all the materials. While I am parallel to me filming more and more, she would watch all the materials. And then every now and then we would sit down and talk about the materials. What do we have here? What is good? What is boring? If something is boring, why is it boring? Is it something that we should skip in the next future days of shooting? If something is good, then what's good about it? Let's analyze it so we know how to proceed with the filming to bring more good stuff like this. Like if I have 2 different camera person, who is better than the other? So who should we work more with? Analyzing the materials, which means every time I am there, something interesting is happening because there is something about the dynamic between me and him that brings a lot of humor and a lot of interesting stuff to the film. So I come to the conclusion that I have to be more and more times by myself there. Then we realize that every time we are talking about his art, not in the office or in the studio, but in the place itself where his art is located, those huge installations, it's beautiful to look through his eyes on his own installations. So it's becoming part of the story. Then we realize that every time we go to the doctor, it's super interesting, and we start talking in the editing room about the fact that this interesting parallel process of fighting for better maintenance, not only for his monuments that he was building throughout the years, but also the maintenance of his own body and of his own brain. And then it is affecting and impacting me in the next shooting days. And then when we try to tell the story, we first of all ask ourselves, what are the best scenes we have? And then let's imagine that this is like one big basket. One big basket. First of all, we put inside the biggest stones we have. Stones, which means the best scenes we have. So we put it inside without in any order right now, just put it inside. And then we start putting smaller stones, which are nice scenes, but not so amazing, but we put it inside. And then we have to ask ourselves, okay, so what do we do now with this? So of course it's just a metaphor, but we take all the stones now to the ground. Basically what we are doing is like we are writing, editing script. And then we start putting one after another, one after another, one after another, and we talk about it, and no, it doesn't make sense, let's change it. And then after a few hours, we come up with some kind of a vague idea about a possible line of scenes. And then she's starting to work on it inside the Avid, the editing program. And then we look at it and we understand all the problems. So we bring another stones, because we think that some of the stones we thought are very strong are actually not so strong, or they don't really match each other. And then we start rolling it over and over and over again, and new materials keep on coming because I keep on filming, until one day there is a storyline which makes sense and makes us smile after a long time of crying.
No, yeah, and then of course you put the music together. And
of course,
what about the film? I mean, what about the protagonist himself? Does he get a say of what he likes and what he doesn't? Or
no.
Artistic. No. How important is artistic control?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. He cannot get any influence and any power. Of course, you can show it to him before you release it to make sure that there is nothing there which is like really horrible for him. But no, you should completely disconnect yourself from his desires.
Right. Have you ever had to make compromises in the past?
Not so much. Not so much. If to be honest, not so much.
And coming back to high maintenance,
I did make compromises, but not because necessarily someone was asking me. Sometimes I felt, or we felt by myself, that there are things that maybe could be very good for the film and could make it more interesting, more dramatic, more sensational, more I don't know, grandiosic.
Okay.
And that you should not use those materials because it could hurt someone too much. And sometimes you protect your own protagonist more than they protect themselves.
Can you give us an example on that one? Maybe a small thing that you took out. You don't have to name names, for example, but something that protected that protagonist.
In Dancing Alfonso, my film from 2007 about old people who dance flamenco. They are around their 80s, and the main protagonist is losing his wife while we're filming. And then he starts dating this other dancer. And I made it a bit softer for his family, who are very religious. So they don't know that actually he put an eye on her earlier than I described it in the film. And that would something that they wouldn't forgive him for. And I thought it's more important to keep him safe than to make my film, I don't know, more dramatic. Just as an example.
As you were filming High Maintenance, coming back to it, and editing, how close was it to the original idea? And how did you pitch the idea? And did you pitch it to anyone? Did you pitch it to broadcasters or?
Yeah, I pitched it in Israel, in CoPro, this international co-production forum. I was pitching it to independently to some broadcasters, and I did get support from ZDF, from Germany and France, from Avrotros from the Netherlands, from Network Knowledge from Canada, from S03 from Sweden, from Polish Film Institute, in Israel, from 3 different sources, TV and 2 different foundations. So I did pitch it a lot. It was relatively an easy job because he's very, very famous. I don't even remember how I was pitching it, but...
Did you have to write it, or was it an oral pitch, or both?
No, both. You always have to write things down. It was a lot about his memory, which is also in the film. Like, in that sense, there is a very strong connection between the original idea and the final outcome, the final result. That I'm making a film about an old artist, very famous, very well-known, that while his monuments that he was building are almost all of them dealing with memory of events, of people, he is slowly losing his own memory. And this is a nice pitch, like a man who did a whole career about memory, his own memory is fading out. Yes, so in that sense, it was very similar to the original pitch. And also this new work by him in Poland for the Polish righteous who saved the lives of Jewish people in the Second World War. I made it very, very central in the pitch. Should he do it? Shouldn't he do it? People criticize it. People want it. People are upset with him. People are happy with him. So in one hand, in my pitch, it was much bigger than in the film itself. But also in the film, it is completely part of the film. So it's not like the film is totally different than the original pitch, but the film has a lot of new, different, interesting layers, which I had no idea about when I was pitching it originally.
So is it quite complex to pitch to many different entities, companies, broadcasters, institutions? And how do you manage all of that? Do you have someone else on board, like an accountant, or, you know, to deal with all these setups and this is coming from here and there? And what about the final editorial policy? Who actually decides we like this, or do you rubber stamp it at the end? But coming back to the beginning, how does one manage, you know, all these, you know, pitches and you know, finance that comes from half a dozen or a dozen different places?
Yeah, of course, I have an accountant, and of course, I'm not alone here. We are a company. Besides me and my brother, we have an office manager, Ranit, who is working with us for many, many years. We have another very professional and great person called Bine from Germany. She's with us already for some years, and she's part of everything we're doing. Is it about post-production or editing or about festivals or about relationships with many different places around the world? So this is like the four main people who are working here. Bine, Ramit, me and Tomer. And then we have also, of course, freelancers who are coming and going. But yes, the decisions are mine. At the end of the day, about this film, the artistic decisions are mine. Like, it's not anyone who can tell me really what to do, not the TV, not the foundation. And I believe that if you do a good job, then your partners are happy. So of course they influence it, but I didn't do anything which wasn't completely mine in the most deep way.
Yes. Yeah, no, we're going to explore stories and other films quite soon. I'm just asking also, now back to editing and things like that, do you have a general shooting ratio? So you make a film, you have 100 hours, and then you can
300 hours. 300 hours. Not 100, 300.
300. Is that the same for every film since?
No. It's not the same. Okay. Some films are only 150 or 200 or 250, and some films are 400 or 500. Okay. The average is 250 to 300 hours.
Right, and Grey Gardens, I believe, which was made in the 70s, is 1 to 300, according to the editor at the time. I saw it in the New Yorker or some press. Now, some people would say, like Werner Herzog would say, you know, I shoot what I need, and he's quite economical with his shooting. Is there a reason why you need to shoot 1 to 250 or 1 to 300? In your case?
Yes, I am not as economical like Werner Herzog, but it's a mix of reasons. Firstly, it's about a character. I am not a person who can plan very well in advance, and I don't like to plan very well in advance, and I'm very not happy when I need to plan very well in advance, and maybe this is why I never had a desire to go into the fiction film, where you have to write a script and you have to be like on top of every little thing way before, because it's just too expensive. You cannot just look for the story. Secondly, how can I know what will happen, and how can I know what is really interesting if I don't try? And when I try things, I want them to be filmed, because I don't want later to regret that they were not filmed. And since I don't really have the story beforehand, because I don't know what will be the story, then in a way I have to shoot to different directions all the time. And it takes time for me to understand what is the most interesting direction. And this time leading me to be later in the editing room with few hundreds of hours of materials. And in a way, it's very not economic of course, but artistically, it also gives me a lot of different new possibilities, which maybe otherwise I wouldn't have.
Right.
Because if you go into very specific and very narrow direction, then okay, maybe you succeed to get what you want, but what about all the things that you didn't even know that you want?
Which comes back to one of my first questions I had in mind. How do you pick a story, and what is a good story to you?
In a way, the stories are picking us up. Like they come to us usually in a very surprising, unexpected ways, almost always based on personal experiences. Like with High Maintenance, it's here, this one, it's, we screened another film in Italy, in Festival di Popoli. It's a very, very beautiful, well-known documentary film festival in Florence, in Italy. And we screened another film that we did called Mr. Gaga, about Ohad Naharin and Batsheva Dance Company. And then this woman came to us, and she's from Israel, and she told us how happy she was to watch the film and how excited she was, and she was thanking us for making this film. And then she asked us, what about my father, Danny Caravan? Don't you think he's also deserved to be in a film? And we didn't really know what to answer her, because I didn't really know and didn't really care about this guy before. I knew the name, I knew he's very big, but I didn't have like much of connection to his art. But I said, okay, let's check it out. Interesting, like he's very well known, like, and I'm very attracted to old people. Like there is something about this age which is touching me very deeply. And then I found myself in his house, in his studio, with a small camera on a tripod, doing some kind of a research interview, just to get better understanding of the guy. Who is he? And for 3 hours, I was sitting completely excited, surprised, in love with this guy that was like on fire. He was on fire. And then I told myself, okay, there is a story here, because first of all, there is a main character here, because he's someone whom you love and also be very annoyed by in the same time. He's sweet, he's generous, he's beautiful, he's great, he's funny, he's smart, he's sensitive. And at the same time, he's so full of himself and so arrogant and so hysteric. And it's an amazing mix of different colors in one man personality. And then when you add on it the fact that he was just about to go to a very interesting artistic political journey with this new piece in Poland, and then when you realize that he's starting to lose his memory a little bit, then I said, okay, you know what, there is something about it. It's a good idea to make a film about it.
And then I assume you wrote the treatment, and then you know, what's the process? You write the treatment, then you stay in contact.
The process was that I contacted the Israeli TV, the public broadcasting channel. They liked very much the idea, and they said yes, because they know the man is very, very, very well known. They liked what I pitched them. They also know me and my brother, and they said, we will go for it. And then I know, okay, now I have not enough money to make the film, but I have good amount of money to start rolling, to start working on this film. And with this money, I was able to finance many days of shooting. And with those many days of shooting in Israel and in abroad, I was able to edit a very strong trailer to raise money, which helped me to raise more partners from Israel and from abroad. And then I had even some more money, and then I was able to film even more and to hire a great editor and to work in a way that I wanted to work.
So how much do films cost? I mean, does it differ when we look at your films?
It depends which film. Like if you talk about High Maintenance, it costs about $350,000. If you talk about Lone Samaritan, it was like maybe half of it.
What about your early films? It kind of scares me. And
well, it kind of scares me. It wasn't my film, it was my brother's. I was not so much involved. It was like 20 years ago. I don't know, not more than $100,000, I believe. I don't know. I'm not sure, but if to be honest, we work in a very, very strange way. We don't always know exactly how much we spend. We are trying to get as much as possible, to spend as less as possible, and we try to get to the end of the year in some way break even.
Fantastic. Can you tell us about your stories in the past? How did some of the other stories come about? Like, okay, for example, the very successful Mr. Gaga. How did that come about?
What do you mean? How did it come?
Was it generated by someone else? Did you meet him one day, or did you have an idea to make a film about a dance company in the past?
No, it was Tomer's personal experience with this dance group, which in a way changed his life. He was crazy about it. And when he became a filmmaker, he decided that he wants to make a film about this guy because he was admiring so much his work and was so much affected by it. And this is how it came from a very personal, private place. And then he dragged me into this experience. And we were fighting for this film for many years.
And when you're making your films or thinking about some films, recently you did something about social media stars. Are you thinking, oh, there's definitely an audience over here for this film? Or are you thinking these are really interesting characters during the process?
No, our decisions are not so well calculated. It's a little more personal and emotional. Like if we find someone or something which is really touching us deeply, and we really feel that it makes sense to invest so much time in this story, then we do it. Now it comes together. If we believe that it's interesting, if it's interesting for us, if we find ourselves being moved and inspired by the story, by the people, then we believe that we will be able to make you, as our viewer, also inspired and moved. And if we believe that people will be inspired and moved by this story and by those people, then it means that there is audience for it. How much audience? Is it audience for TV or for cinema or for the web? It's hard to say in advance. But I think you shouldn't even think like this. If you're being touched, you have to go all the way with your idea, and then to look for the audience at the end, not at the beginning.
Thank you for listening to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Should you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please get in touch. This podcast is kindly sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street.